So the Texas Longhorns may have had a little bit of a good weekend in the recruiting department, and I think we need to talk about it. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited about the prospect of Cameron Williams, the offensive tackle, and Quinn Ewers, the 5-star quarterback out the transfer portal, playing for the Texas Longhorns? And let me know what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though they may seem small, are really massive to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's hop right into this because we've got a lot to discuss. And we're going to start in the trenches because as in football, it all begins and ends in the trenches. And Cameron Williams is a great win for the Longhorns because when you look at the major need of the Texas Longhorns, it's offensive line. And it all started this weekend when the Longhorns were able to get in Kelvin Banks, the 5-star offensive tackle, who is a one-time commit of the Oregon Ducks. With the chaos the coaching carousel has caused, Kelvin Banks ultimately backed off his commitment to Oregon and looked to revisit his options. And when he did that, the Texas Longhorns were able to get in a massive win. And then a 3-star offensive tackle, but a very talented individual in Cameron Williams. Both individuals being in the state of Texas, which is great for Steve Sarkisian and company. Because locking up the state of Texas is going to be big for the resurgence of the Texas Longhorns, especially when you look at in-state team Texas A&M and what they're doing on the recruiting trail, because they are as hot as any team in the nation right now in terms of recruiting, and so whenever you're able to get an in-state win, whether they were on that kid or not, it's always nice because you're able to build talent that's going to help you. Now, ultimately, when we look at those two additions, you have to imagine that excited Quinn Ewers. And with this move coming this quickly, you'd kind of think that this has been in his mind since he entered the transfer portal, that Texas was in a really good position. But when you add in a 5-star offensive tackle and then a very talented 3-star offensive tackle, if you were a 5-star quarterback, you can imagine getting pretty excited yourself. And Longhorns fans need to be excited, because Quinn Ewers is now the second highest rated recruit in Texas Longhorns history behind only Vince Young. And if we're being honest, they're both rated as a 1. So rank them how you will. I'll always put Vince Young first because of not only what he did in high school, but what he did when he went to college. It's very hard to put anybody in front of Vince Young because that success carried over. But Quinn Ewers is a phenomenally talented individual. I mean, we don't need to solely look at what he did in high school, which was fantastic. When he went to the Elite 11, he was dominant. He is an individual that has been dominant. And even though he went to Ohio State, we also need to remember that when he went to Ohio State, he didn't get to go there in January as an early enrollee. No, he went over the summer after all those other quarterbacks already had so many reps in the system. He came in really late as the youngest guy there, still technically being a senior in high school, and tried to compete. When that didn't work, I don't think people were surprised, and it wasn't because of Quinn Ewers' ability. Everybody acknowledges that kid has all the ability in the world, but it was for a few reasons. First and foremost, the reason I just gave. He got there late, he was still technically a senior in high school, and all those other guys had gotten reps and reps and reps in the system and with the other players, and they were just more ready at that point. The second reason is, when you look at the names in the room, Ohio State's quarterback room is about as loaded as any room in the nation. And third, CJ Stroud did nothing to lose the job. If you're Quinn Ewers and you're looking at the situation and CJ Stroud is there and he's done absolutely nothing to lose the job and he finds himself in his first year starting in New York for the Heisman ceremony, it's going to be very hard for you to unseat that individual no matter how talented you are, because they are also clearly very talented and whatever they're doing is working. So the coach would be taking a massive gamble even if you are otherworldly talented, because he's already got something that's gelling. He's already got something that's working. And when you look at that last factor in particular and the age of CJ Stroud, it just made sense for Ewers to transfer. And especially when he was originally committed to the Texas Longhorns, decommitted with the firing of Tom Herman, when Steve Sarkisian got there, there was a question as to whether that would be enough to relight that flame. And Steve Sarkisian and company tried very hard, but ultimately Ewers was stuck in with his commitment with Ohio State. But when he hit the transfer portal, it was just kind of a foregone conclusion that the Texas Longhorns at least should do everything they could to try and get Quinn Ewers in. Because when you're addressing the offensive line, that's going to excite a quarterback such as Quinn Ewers, and I understand. The Texas Longhorns have capable quarterbacks on roster, and even though I do believe that the quarterbacks they have on roster have high upside, have high capabilities, and are going to be solid players, none of them have the upside of Quinn Ewers. And that's just the truth. This kid has an otherworldly upside, and the Texas Longhorn fan base has got to be incredibly excited that he is in this class. It's going to cause shockwaves in recruiting, as all major quarterbacks do, but a quarterback of Quinn Ewers' stature is going to be something we have to watch. What will this do for other offensive line prospects? Because the Texas Longhorns still find themselves in battles for top offensive linemen. What will this do for other playmakers, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and especially with early National Signing Day being just a few days away? I don't think the Texas Longhorns are done. I think we're going to be revisiting this team very soon because Steve Sarkisian and company are doing everything they can to right the wrongs of this season, because this season, to put it politely, and I'm sure Texas fans, now that time has passed, you'll agree with me, it was a dumpster fire. It absolutely was. The Texas Longhorns is a proud brand, and even though the last X amount of years hasn't gone the way you would have liked, that doesn't take away from what your brand and what you want to be. You want to be a top-tier program, and the program in and of itself should be a top-tier program. But the best way to do it is with recruiting wins. And I know people will say, but that hasn't been Texas's problem. And you're right. You're certainly not wrong if you point me to the recruiting rankings and say, hey, Texas has had good classes, so it's not that. And the reason I say that is because when you recruit these top classes, they have to make sense. And Texas, though ranking well, are just more or less a collection of talent. They don't have the cohesion that other classes have. And yes, I'm an Alabama fan, so I'm going to give an Alabama recruiting class as an example. But if you look at last year's Alabama class, from top to bottom, the class made sense from a cohesion standpoint. You looked at that class and you said, yeah, we can start building a football team around this class now. That was the cohesion that the Crimson Tide were able to generate. It's great getting in talented players. It's not a bad thing if you already have cohesion on your roster and you're just trying to add in talent. But if you do not have that cohesion, the talented classes are great, but are they meaningful? And that's the biggest question that must be answered. And these commitments that Texas has got in this class, these commitments could be meaningful commitments. You know Xavier Worthy has to be excited about Quinn Ewers going to Texas. I'm excited to see what this means. I think college football in and of itself is going to have their eyes in Austin right now, seeing what comes next, and naturally so. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.